Okay, I think we can start. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start with our proceedings this afternoon, I'd like to invite Morgan from the CSIR International Convention Center to come and give us a safety briefing. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the CSIR International Convention Center. My name is Morgan Mahlangu. For hygiene purposes, please do not change seats for the duration of the meeting. Sanitizing stations are located in the foyer and all around the building. In the unlikely event of an emergency, an alarm will sound throughout the building. Trained responders will give instructions on evacuation. Stay calm, take only belongings that you can carry. Emergency procedure: walk in an orderly manner, do not run. Responders will lead us to an emergency exit, then to the assembly point. Please observe 1 meter from other delegates and staff. General information: restrooms are available throughout the building. Please look out for signages. As this is a public building, please do not leave your valuables unattended. Wi-Fi information: free wireless internet access is available throughout the building. Select free CSIR ICC on your device and no password is required. I thank you. Enjoy your time at the CSIR Convention Center.
Thank you so much, Morgan. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nolwazi Mwabi, and I am the CSIR Brand and Corporate Comms Manager. I will be facilitating the session this afternoon. I would like to acknowledge our Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Thulani Dlamini. I'd like to acknowledge our CSIR executive leadership present here today. And also, we would like to extend a warm welcome to the journalists, to the media present today in this hall, and to those who are joining us online. We are delighted to host you, and we are looking forward to fruitful engagements. So the purpose of this session is to really share the CSIR's performance and some of the significant innovations that are emerging from our organization. And of course, in line with our mandate of improving the quality of lives of our people. And we'll also highlight some of the progress that have been made in the implementation of the CSR strategy that we adopted some 4 years ago. What I would like to emphasize is that the main focus of today is on our on our performance, and I'm glad that we have already shared the annual report with you for easy reference. And just to give you then the program overview for today, the CEO will give the presentation on our performance and some of the highlights, as I've mentioned. And thereafter, I will take questions from our online delegates and our audience here today. And later on, we will have closing remarks from our group executive for Advanced Chemistry and Life Sciences, Dr. Rachel Chikwamba. Please also note that the presentation that Dr. Dlamini will be giving today, it will be shared with you immediately after the session. So yes, without much delay, I would like to invite our CEO to come and unpack in his presentation on some of the topics I've mentioned above. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nolwazi, for the opening remarks. I also want to extend a very warm word of welcome to our partners from the media who have kindly accepted our invitation to be part of this engagement. We really, really value and appreciate your support. I think you are, in a way, the mouthpiece of the CSR in terms of taking our message to the broader South African public, and we really appreciate your interest in our organization. We hope that what we'll share with you today will also excite you in terms of the contribution that our organization is making towards creating a better South Africa for all of us. So to kick off then, what it's not cooperate. Looks like we're stuck. Thanks, man. So what we thought we'll do today, as already mentioned by my colleague, is there's two things. One is to share with you our achievements of the previous financial year in terms of how we have performed in relation to our commitment to our shareholder. But in addition to that, we thought we'll also give you an update in terms of the progress that we have made over the past 3 years in the implementation of our strategy. Some of you were here, I think it was towards the end of 2018, if I'm not mistaken, when we shared with you the new strategy and the new vision that we had put forward for the CSR. So we thought it was perhaps the right time for us to share with you some of the progress that we have made in this regard. So the point that we'll speak to, we'll talk to you about who we are. We'll speak about our performance in relation to our performance indicators over the past 3 years, but also focusing on our performance in relation to our targets for the previous financial year. We'll reflect very briefly in terms of some of the highlights of the work that we are doing in supporting human capital development or capability development within the organization and developing a pipeline. Then we'll speak to issues of financial sustainability and good governance. And then lastly, share selected examples of the work that we are doing in terms of research, development, and innovation. The annual report that we've shared with you will contain, of course, a much more comprehensive set of examples of our work. And for that last bit, I'll invite my three colleagues, Dr. Richard Chukwamba, Dr. Sandile Malinga, and Dr. Mudode Maseremule to speak to that aspect. So if we kick off then in terms of our mandate, our mandate is fairly broad. It's derived from the CSR Act. And at the heart of the mandate is that as a CSIR, we are expected to perform directed research and technological innovation, which fosters scientific and industrial development. We do this in collaboration with partners in the public and the private sector. And ultimately, everything that we do as a CSIR must contribute towards improving the quality of lives of the people of South Africa. I think when we met with you in 2018, we indicated that we wish to place a significant emphasis on our role in terms of contributing towards industrial development to ensure that the work that we do as a CSIR translates to industrial and economic development in South Africa in a very visible and meaningful way. And we'd like to share with you perhaps the progress that we've made in this regard. We've taken this very broad mandate and we have reduced it into a vision and a mission statement, which perhaps try to define it in a much more succinct way. What is it that we really do as a CSIR? So our vision is that we are accelerators of socio-economic prosperity in South Africa through leading innovation. So we've chosen these words very carefully because they try to define exactly who we are as an organization. And how we do this is by collaboratively innovating and localizing technologies whilst providing knowledge solutions for the inclusive and sustainable advancement of industry and society. Again, very carefully chosen words. We realize that our contribution to industrial development in South Africa will not only come through the innovations that we develop within the CSIR, that we also look for opportunities to localize whatever comes out from the rest of the world that is relevant to us, that we can adapt to the South African needs, and of course, in so doing, address the issues that we need to address as a country. So it's not just about innovating for the sake of innovating. If there's technologies or solutions that are out there in the world that we can utilize in South Africa, we'll drive and ensure that those solutions are brought into the country. But there's also another dimension to localization. It's about creating some kind of strategic independence, reducing our balance of payments, and substituting products that normally will import from other parts of the world with locally developed products that can serve a similar purpose in government as well as in industry. Issues of inclusivity are very important to us as well with regards to this, as well as issues of sustainability are at the core of what we do. So we do a lot of work, for instance, around the circular economy, because we realize the need to reduce the environmental impact of the work that we do as a country. We are guided by a set of values which spell out the word epic, which in a way perhaps tries to define the kind of organization that we wish to have, as well as the kind of people that we wish to have in the organization. We believe in excellence. We always strive for excellence in everything that we do. We are a people-centered organization. We conduct ourselves with integrity in terms of how we engage with each other, but also how we engage with our stakeholders. And we value collaboration. We'll ensure that in the work that we do, we create opportunities for us to collaborate internally within the organization to ensure that we can tap into the broad capability that exists within the CSIR, but also to collaborate with partners outside of the CSIR, be it private sector, be it universities, be it science councils, and so on and so forth. So these are the values that guide us in terms of how we conduct ourselves, that guide us in terms of how we execute the various programs that we execute in the organization. The strategic intent of our strategy is captured in this slide. At one level, we wish to contribute towards the growth of the South African economy through the work that we do. But at the same time, also want to grow the CSIR through the various opportunities that we think we can tap into as a result of our work. We wish to contribute towards the sustainability of the South African economy by supporting enterprises, South African enterprises, and making them more competitive through our work, but also as a result of that, creating a CSIR that is sustainable in the long term, in terms of the capabilities that we develop, in terms of our own financial sustainability. We wish to realize impact through our work. That happens through the commercialization of the intellectual property we generate in the CSIR, which leads to the establishment of new enterprises coming out of our intellectual property. And then lastly, we wish to drive the conversation around the relevance of innovation as a key driver and a key enabler for economic development in South Africa. We are of the view that for a very long time, when we talk about economic development in South Africa, we don't realize, perhaps we don't elevate the role that innovation can play in terms of innovation. I think there are various examples all over the world which show that in innovation, research, development, and innovation is a key enabler of long-term sustainable economic growth. And we don't think that South Africa is any different in terms of this particular issue. And we, as a CSIR, we see ourselves playing a significant role in this regard. We've set ourselves a set of strategic objectives, which perhaps reduce all these very high-level statements into things that we can do on a day-to-day basis to drive us in terms of ensuring that we realize the intentions of our strategy. The first one is about conducting research and development of transformative technologies and accelerating their diffusion. So it's not just about doing research for the sake of doing research. We want to ensure that the work that we do is indeed diffused to government as well as to industry. But at the same time, also what lies behind this objective is the realization that for us to remain relevant in the long term, we need to invest in the development of capabilities that are forward-looking. I think when we came up with this new strategy of the CSIR, one of the criticisms that we received was that perhaps we are becoming short-term in our thinking. that we'll lose the scientific capability that we've built over the years by having a very short-term focus. I think this objective addresses that issue quite squarely. The second one is really about the relevance of our work in terms of its potential to contribute to the reindustrialization of South Africa. And then the third strategic objective is about the role that we need to play as a CSIR to contribute towards the creation of a capable state, creating the balance between doing work that is relevant for industry, but at the same time also doing work that supports the state, because we were created by the state, and therefore we can never forget, I think, the responsibility that we have in terms of contributing towards the development of a capable state. And then the last two objectives are more inward-looking, one being about building and transforming human capital and infrastructure, and then the last one about the diversification of our income streams, ensuring that we remain financially sustainable, and that our organization is an organization that operates in an environment of good governance. I think issues of the diversification of income are very important to us, because we realize that to a large extent, our income has been primarily from the public sector. So we've defined pillars of our strategy, which in a way inform the areas in which we undertake research, development. These areas were identified following a very rigorous and extensive exercise in terms of looking at areas of the South African economy where we think technology can bring about a significant change in terms of performance, but also those areas of the economy which have the most potential in terms of contributing towards GDP growth, economic job creation, and other related issues. So these are the 9 pillars of our strategy. So we'll focus on advanced agriculture and food, where the emphasis is really about improving the competitiveness and the performance of our agricultural sector through the introduction of cutting-edge technologies. My colleague will speak later on about the work, for instance, that we are doing in this area around precision agriculture. We've got a focus on chemicals, with the emphasis on developing technologies that will create a green chemicals industry within South Africa. Focusing on advanced materials also as part of chemicals. These are the advanced materials which have a reduced environmental footprint and so on and so forth. We have a focus on next generation health, focusing on manufacturing, mining, as well as defense and security. And the last set of clusters are what we call industry and society enabling clusters. In a way, underpin, I think, some of the work that is happening in the clusters I've mentioned above. So here we've got a focus on smart places, which covers the whole area of the built environment, the natural environment, as well as issues of energy, smart mobility, as well as next generation enterprises, which focuses on the use of ICT and other technologies as part of what we are seeing with regards to the digitization of government, digitization of public institutions, as well as the private sector. So these pillars also define the operating model of the CSIR. We refer to them as clusters. They define the work that we do and where we think we can make an impact in terms of economic growth within South Africa. Maybe just very briefly in terms of numbers, we employ 2,200 people in the organization. 78% of our staff is Black South Africans, and about 48% being female in the total staff complement of the CSIR. Our set base makes up about 71% of our total staff in the organization. And within the set base, 66% of our set base is Black South Africans. Females make up about 38% of our set base. We also, of course, employ colleagues with disabilities, as well as track the qualification profile of our set base. But this is an indicator also of the quality of the work that we are able to execute within the CSIR. So if I move on then with that background in terms of who we are to our performance over the last year, and again, looking at our performance over the past 3 years in terms of our ability to deliver on our strategy. So the past financial year, we achieved 81% of the targets that we had set for ourselves. So these targets, maybe just to explain a little bit. So we've got the strategic objective that I've spoken to earlier on, 5 of them. And within each one of these strategic objectives, we've defined a set of performance indicators. They make up a set of 31 different performance indicators. They're all detailed in the annual report that you will have seen. So this slide gives a summary of how we have performed in relation to that set of performance indicators that sit within the various strategic objectives that you set for us. So overall, our performance was 81% of our targets. 68% of those were exceeded in relation to the target that we set for ourselves. So if we look at the first strategic objective, we achieved 60% of the target that we set for that area where we did not meet our targets with regards to the priority patents. It's a little bit difficult. Maybe you can try and get a roving mic because it's a bit hard. So the area where we did not meet our targets in terms of the first strategic objectives is with regards to the priority patents as well as the licensed technologies. We met all our targets in terms of the work that we are doing to contribute towards the reindustrialization of South Africa. So here we're looking at technology that we've localized. We're looking at joint technology agreements that we've signed with industry, as well as the work that we are doing to support small, micro, and medium enterprises. If you look at SO3, the work we are doing in terms of supporting the creation of a capable state, here we achieved all our targets with regards to that. And this includes work we are doing that contributes to national policy development, the development of standards, as well as projects that we execute to support the creation of a capable state. I think we're beginning to see a very healthy balance in terms of our ability to contribute to industrial development and at the same time also ensure that we support the state through the various initiatives that we do. If you look at the fourth strategic objective, we achieved 75% of our targets in this regard. The area where we did not achieve our targets was in relation to the percentage of PhDs in the set base, the total number of chief researchers, as well as the number of female chief researchers that we have. And then lastly, if you look at SO5, which looks at issues of diversification of income, financial sustainability, as well as good governance, we achieved 88% of our targets in this area. The only target that we did not meet was the total income target that we had set for ourselves. So if one then looks at how we have performed in the various key performance indicators over the past 3 years. Are you not able to get a roving mic? Okay. So if we take the number of publication equivalents, so we track a lot of outputs, as I said, in terms of performance indicators. One of them are the publications that we produce. Publications are a good indicator of the quality of the work that we do because they go through a peer review process. And as we said earlier, we have to ensure that we continue to invest in research and development that will ensure that the CSIR remains sustainable and relevant into the future. So publications are very good proxy of that. So last year we produced 422.5 publication equivalents. So this number is a composite number, which includes journal publications, books, book chapters, conference proceedings, and so forth. We saw a slight decrease during 2020-21 as a result of COVID, as you would have expected. But the trend in the previous financial year is indeed in the right direction, that we're beginning to see an uptick with regards to total number of publications that we produced over the last year. But we don't only take publications, we also need to ensure that the work that we do has some kind of utility. And a good indicator of this is our ability to protect the intellectual property that we generate in the organization through patents, for instance. So if you look at our number of patents, I think this again dropped during 2021 as a result of COVID. But again, we are back to the value that we're at in 2019, 2020. in terms of the number of patents, priority patent applications that we filed. If you look at the number of patents granted, this shows a slight decrease over the past 3 years with an increase in 2020-21. We find that this figure in terms of patents granted is a very difficult number to project because this is to a large extent a result of what sits currently in the pipeline in terms of priority patents that we filed in previous years. And one has very little, I would say, control in terms of when those patents get granted in the various jurisdictions in which we file those patents. If we look at technology demonstrators, which are an indication of the maturity of the innovations coming out of the work that we are doing. So this is work which is at general level 6 and above. You can see that there has been a steady increase in terms of the number of technology demonstrators that we produce within the CSIR. In the last year, we produced 55 technology demonstrators. Now, this is work which is close to the point where it can be licensed or commercially exploited with the partner. If you look at license agreements that we've signed with our partners, over the past 3 years, this has grown by 140% in terms of the license agreements that we've signed with partners. So this is work now where we are licensing the intellectual property produced by the CSIR for commercial exploitation with the partner. Again, an indication of the contribution that we are making as a CSIR in terms of supporting the creation of new enterprises or the sustainability of existing enterprises within the South African economy. If we move to the second strategic objective, which looks at the work that we are doing to support the reindustrialization of South Africa, how did we perform over the past 3 years? So here you look at technology that we've localized. You see a steady increase in terms of our contribution towards the localization of technology. So here we talk about work where technology that were imported in the past are now produced locally in South Africa through the work that we have. If you look at joint technology agreements that we've signed with industry, again, you see a steady increase in terms of our contribution towards that. The 25 agreements signed with industry in the past financial year. We also do a lot of work in terms of supporting small and medium enterprises. There was a slight decrease over the past 3 years, but again, you're beginning to see an increase in terms of the number of SMEs supported between the year that we were at the throes of COVID to the previous financial year. If we move to the third strategic objective, which is about the work that we do to support the creation of a capable state, again, looking at national policy development, the work that we do to contribute toward national policy development, I think it's remained fairly flat with a slight drop in 2020-21 as a result of COVID. The work that we do in terms of contributing towards standards, there's also a slight decline as a result of that over the period, but nothing significant. I think it's well within what we've done in the past. If you look at the work that we are doing in terms of contributing towards the creation of a capable state, then here you can see a significant increase. Again, perhaps illustrating our relevance in terms of supporting various government initiatives through the work that we are doing. I mean, there are many projects that we did, which we can talk to during COVID, which contributed towards the national response to the COVID-19 pandemic. If we go to the fourth strategic objective, which looks at building and transforming human capital and infrastructure, then one of the issues that we had to address was to ensure that we grow the set base in the organization as a result of the decline that we saw earlier on when we implemented our new strategy. And you can see there's a very positive trajectory in terms of the growth of the set base within the CSIR. If we've also ensured that we retain or improve our performance with regards to transformation of the set base, which is an imperative for us. So you can see that there's been a positive trajectory in terms of the percentage of the set base, which is black, as well as the percentage of the set base, which is female. If you move on to now the profile of the set base, looking firstly at the number of colleagues in the set base that have PhDs, you can see there's a positive trajectory with regards to this. This is a very important indicator for us, as I said earlier, of the quality of the work that we're able to do within the organization. If you look at the total number of chief researchers, the chief researcher is the highest level of research that you can have, researcher that you can have within the CSIR. It's almost equivalent to being a professor at university. So you can see that there's been again, positive increase in terms of the number of chief researchers. It's something that we struggle with, I must confess, because we find that this cohort of colleagues is very attractive to higher education institutions as well as to private sector. So we struggle to retain this cohort of colleagues within the CSIR. But we've got various programs and initiatives that we've put in place to try and ensure that we have a healthy pipeline that could sustain this for us going into the future. The number of principal researchers, which is a level just below the chief researcher, you can see also a very positive trajectory in terms of the growth of the number of principal researchers. I think all in all, what one is saying is that we've managed to grow the set base within the organization. We've got a very healthy pipeline, and we also have the right quality of capabilities that support the realization of our strategy. If we look at the number of exchange programs that we are executing with industry, again, an indicator of our relevance to industry and our contribution towards industrial development, you can again see that there's been a significant increase in terms of the number of exchange programs that we are executing in partnership with industry. If we move to the fifth strategic objective, which is about diversification of income, financial sustainability, and good governance, there's been a decrease in terms of our total income, and the significant decrease coming as a result of COVID, where we all had to face, I think, the constraints that were placed upon us as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. But what you can see also is that in the last financial year, we are beginning to recover from the impact of COVID-19. I think a significant reduction that we've seen in terms of our income is that of the public sector income, as a portfolio in terms of the different income streams to the CSIR. Our private sector income over the period shows a growth of about 32%. And our international income shows a growth of over 50% over the past 3 years. I think these two also are a very good indicator of the realization of our strategy in terms of our focus on industrial development. If we look at our net profit, again, you see a very positive trajectory in terms of the net profit of the CSIR. I think the CSIR is funded, 25% is a grant from the state. The rest we generate through contract research and development that we undertake for the public and the private sector. So you can see over the past 3 years that there has been a very positive and healthy growth in terms of our net budget. So I think what these set of slides indicate is that the CSIR is in a very strong financial position, and that that the future in terms of our financial sustainability looks very positive and encouraging. If you look at governance, we've gone from a level 4 BBBEE to a level 1 in the past financial year, perhaps the best in the public sector environment. Our recordable incident rate, which is an indicator of our health and safety performance, has also improved from 1.82 in 2019-2020 to 0.14 in 2021-22. Of course, we'd like to get to a performance of 0 in this indicator, which means that we have had no safety-related incidents in our organization. I think we continue to ensure that the CSIR is an organization that operates in an environment of good governance, And over the past 3 years, and maybe even going beyond, we've always had a clean audit from the Auditor General. If we then move to some of the initiatives that we've been driving to build and transform human capital, and I'll be very brief on this one. We have a number of initiatives that are focused on creating a pipeline of researchers, as well as supporting graduates in terms of career development, and also building and investing internally in terms of capacity development. So we've got a very extensive bursary program, which has over 488 students within that. And the bursary program that we have, it's not just our own investments, but also we partner with other players within the national system of innovation. We've got a graduates in training program within the CSIR, and over the past 3 years, we've had 80 graduates that have been supported through our GIT program, and 28 of those were then placed permanently within the CSIR. We have a number of workplace-based learning programs that we undertake with various partners in TVETs, as well as in CETAs, and the likes of the Department of Science and Innovation, Department of Higher Education, the NSF. And within this, we support interns, for instance, that spend time within the CSIR getting experiential learning. We also participate in the YES program, Youth Employment Service Initiative. And over the past year, we had 55 youths. We had 55 youths that were part of our Youth Employment Service Initiative. These were placed in various small, medium, and micro enterprises within South Africa. Now, looking internally, we have an accelerated research and development program, which is about building a pipeline of chief researchers within the CSIR, as I mentioned earlier, to ensure that we have security with regards to this cohort of researchers within the organization. We also have a program that is focusing on the development of principal researchers to ensure that we have transformation, but also security of supply with regards to the senior levels of research within the CSIR. We've also implemented a number of programs that are focusing on leadership and management development, both to develop internal capacity, but also to invest in the development of future leaders. If we then move on to research, development, and innovation highlights, I would like to invite, firstly, Dr. Chikwamba to come and speak to the next 2 slides or so, then followed by Dr. Maserimula and then Dr. Malinga. Dr. Chikwamba, over to you.
Hope I know how to move this. No, that's the wrong direction. Thank you very much. I would like to talk about some of the work that we're doing in some of the sectors that the CEO indicated are critical to the growth of our economy. And I start off with the work that we're doing in agriculture. And to this end, I want to take out an example of the work that we do related to detecting diseases in the aquaculture industry. This is an industry that is emerging and is vitally important as we seek alternative sources of protein, especially in our rural communities. And the perspective that we adopt in actually addressing this particular challenge is not just that aquaculture is important to South Africa, rather aquaculture is important across the continent and in fact, broadly across the world. In this particular instance, we have done work as the CSIR with our counterparts. There's another CSIR in Ghana, and I'm talking in this case about, the CSIR Water Research Institute, where we have undertaken field trials of diagnostic assays and kits to detect pathogens that affect African aquaculture. So what happens is sometimes you get infection in your ponds or your pools or your dams, and you only start seeing, birds coming to pick on your fish and you see them float. Then you know you've lost the crop. What we try to do is to develop a method of, at the site of work, where you do the aquaculture, where you do the farming, be able to detect if you've got this disease in your water, and then you are able to actually take control measures before your whole crop is lost or destroyed. And associated with that, of course, is work that we're doing to try and find vaccines that can also be delivered orally to support aquaculture. In particular, the work that we have done and are now poised to expand across the continent is work that affects, tilapia lake virus. And that virus is a major, major pest in our own economy and across the continent. We've done field trials across the continent, and we're ready to scale up and scale out. So that's the first example, with impact at home and impact across the continent. The second example that I want to highlight is how we support, in collaboration with others, such as the Agricultural Research Council, primary production using the most modern of tools, 4IR tools, which is at the heart of our strategy. Our strategy says we should use the best of technologies, 4IR technologies included, to improve the competitiveness of the various sectors in which we endeavor to intervene. In this particular case, we know the importance of small-scale emerging farmers to the agricultural economy. And we know the challenges that they face in trying to be competitive and compete with the best of them. In this particular instance, we partnered with FarmSol Holdings, a South African breweries partner and agricultural services company that has to date seeded 980 to almost 1,000 emerging farmers in all 9 provinces to digitally transform its maize farming extension services using unmanned aerial vehicles or drones, satellite technologies, and big data and data analytics. And to this end, what we do is to be able to provide, by interpreting this data in the analytics, we convert this data into, insights and insights that are actionable. We're able to advise farmers about the needs to fertilize their soils, the needs to irrigate their crops, the whole need to control pests, and so on. These are the kinds of actionable insights that come off of the platform that we are deploying. And it forms part of the efforts by the CSIR and stakeholders in the sector to develop a precision agriculture information system, which will optimize inputs, survey pests and diseases, and allow us to predict yield. The solutions that are under development will help the emerging farmers with decision-making in the context of changing environmental conditions. We know how climate is changing, and this presents new challenges for crop health and overall competitiveness. But I would also like to add that overall resilience of the sector is something that becomes vitally important. And I think I would like to leave it here for my colleague to continue to talk to us about what they do in advanced production and defense. Dr. Masrumli.
Good afternoon, colleagues. So now in mining, there are this huge trackless mobile machinery that when you compare to the to human body, it looks quite small. Now the distinction with this machinery is that it wreaks havoc in relative terms, in terms of fatalities in mines. So as a way, so there is a continuous effort to minimize harm to miners to zero in the sector. So there is a technology that relies on the 3D modeling, whereby a 3D representation of the vehicle can be created that enables for easier simulation. So the technology, the twinning technologies are so advanced that the digital twin of entire mine can be created, so that the simulation of the vehicles moving in a mine can be done to determine the operational proficiency, the safety of people as they're walking through, and so forth. So this technology was developed with industry to simulate for safer use, and indeed the industry has been quite excited with the outcomes. So the simulation is able to predict the effectiveness of vehicle interaction, in this case with the humans in the loop, and also to determine how does one optimize the operations of the mine, because these vehicles are used largely to take the raw material that gets taken out, and the effectiveness of drivers as well, because they're driven by human beings. They're trackless and they're not autonomous yet. So to track to track and plan the simulation in there. So with the stakeholders in mining, including several mining houses and the mining, the Department of Science and Innovation and Minerals Council of South Africa, as well as the Mandela Mining Precinct. This has been done and accepted, and the actual outcome of this will be realized in a few years to come, as and when we're able to, individual mines are able to optimize their own operations, and minimize, by both minimizing the injuries to humans, the fatalities, and improving the productivity in mines. So that is the first. That is the first. That is the first example. Now the second example in this area is the Learning Factory that was established in the Eastern Cape, Midlands Technical and Vocational Training College. Now the Learning Factory really is a representation that takes mostly 4IR technologies, represent this in the form of a manufacturing plant to then impart these skills to people. Is targeted really at the TVET level, at TVET level students, but it can be also used to train people in mines. Royal Bafokeng, for instance, have taken this up, and other mining houses are taking this up. But the biggest audience here is are the TVET level students, and together with Miasita, and the target is that there will be a minimum of two learning factories per province. This to make sure that TVET graduates are more job ready, and they get skills that are future looking. So the Eastern Cape became the first province to have a site of the pilot factory established in the Midlands. And the CSIR, in partnership with Miasita, intends to establish more learning factories at TVET colleges around the country, with a target of a minimum of 2, as indicated. So we're quite excited about this, and we find that all the sectors of the economy are really excited in terms of these tools, because what the distinction of this technology is that one does not need to be proficient at 4IR technologies to be able to train, to use the machines that do this. So at the skill level, I often give the example of motor vehicles. To be a driver of a Rolls Royce, you need not be a mechanical engineer or a scientist for that matter. But so we still have people that are working on in the background, making the 4IR technologies, but at the same time, the skills to actually be productive can be imparted to a person with reasonable literacy. So this is what this is where the power of this initiative is based at. Next slide. Now, the next example is been done in conjunction with the Department of Correctional Services. A problem that they find themselves with is that offenders are taken through the justice system, taken through a magistrate or a magistrate court, found guilty, and then incarcerated. Now, the tracking of offenders in the system has been very tricky. So what this system is going to be able to do, because it's biometrics based, for now, the biometric of choice here is the fingerprint. So the people will be enrolled from court. Their fingerprints will be enrolled, and the system is able to. So if the fingerprints are taken are submitted on paper, there is a handheld device that will be able to acquire the fingerprint from the paper and match it to a database, and enroll it in the database, so that for the subsequent identification has to be easy. And it's very strong. The part of the team that is developing this has been working on biometrics for quite some time. So, and they have licensed a few technologies to the market. So the fidelity of the models is quite high. The credibility is quite good. So the department is quite sharp on this, because it will solve quite a good number of the identification and tracking and tracking movements of offenders in the system. The last example here speaks to the national government requirement to have a world-class vaccination certificate system. Now, a team from across the CSIR, and it covers, I think, just about all the divisions of the CSIR, together with the Department of Health, developed and implemented the country's national COVID-19 vaccination certificate. So part of the technical milestones here were to make sure that the system is safe, is secure, and is acceptable to other countries. And this was done, and it's now in operation. There is a continual improvement on some of these as they go on, but we were able to take advantage of an array of capabilities from across the CSR to make sure that this gets done. And as a result, South Africa is among the countries which certificate is accepted globally. Let me ask Dr. Malinga to do the rest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, the work that I'm going to present is work that we've done with the Department of Gauteng, Department of Roads and Transport. And it's two examples, and this work strengthens what the CEO indicated, our effort to create or to assist in the development of a capable state. And the two examples here talk to a mobile app that has been developed. And apart from enabling the state, this was in partnership with a small company. And so it straddles enabling and creating a capable state, as well as working with industry, as the CEO emphasized earlier on. And in this case, we developed this app to assist the Department of Roads and Transport within our province here. And this has been working well. altogether about downloads that we've had so far since this has been launched is about 7,000 individuals have downloaded this app. The numbers that you see here indicate 5,000. That's when we were still preparing the slides, and the latest now stands at 7,000. And the potholes as of today that have been identified are in excess of about 3,005 that have been identified. And it's very informative in the sense that it indicates where the problem areas are. 80% of these are within municipalities, roads, and about 15% of these will be on provincial roads, and then a small percentage of 5, you'll find that those are on SANRA roads. And working with the Gauteng municipality, it assists them to then focus. And the app, which you can download yourself on any of the app stores, indicates where we are with regards to the progress in the repairs, the reports that have been done, the repairs that have been done, and those that are in progress. And so far, what we've seen and picked up is that the repair rate is around 75%. And so we are assisting the provincial government to increase that rates to higher rates of repair. The second one is work that we did. We started this work in 2019-20. And this was at the height of COVID. To look at the impact of COVID on travel patterns for households. And in as much as the time then was so difficult for us to conduct this work, we worked together again with industry, particularly on collecting the data, which we then analyzed to look at patterns of travel as to whether has there been any change with regards to travel patterns in the province. And indeed, one of the findings, which is major, that we picked up is that over 60% of the residents of the province are using in excess of the maximum cap or the policy prescript of 10% of their income on public transport. And this is not desired. Obviously, it means that there is less disposable income that can be used for other things. And that result has assisted the province to look at ways of reducing that amount to less than 10%. We've subsequently done more work on this. And we will be reporting in more detail the results from this work. But the preliminary findings are worrying in the sense that they indicate that there are certain patterns of travel that may allude to changes which are permanent following COVID, and also things that relate to the preferences of travel. In the main, that we prefer to drive in our own cars, and that has implication on the roads, as you have noticed, with regards to traffic. There are also other long-lasting implications. The move away from public transport, the less of preference on taxis and individual-driven cars. So those are some of the results that we have, and we'll be reporting in the course of this financial year, and we hope that you will be seeing those being reported in further. And in addition to that, we've now broken the research to the different regions within our province, Ekurhuleni, Joburg, as well as Tshwane. And that allows the municipalities to then focus in their areas in more detail than we had published previously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for that. I think that gives you a sense, it's a snippet really of the total impact of the work that we are doing, but it gives you a sense of our contribution towards sustainability of different sectors in which we operate here. We've spoke about the work we're doing in agriculture, work we're doing in terms of the modernization of the South African economy. We gave examples again in agriculture as well as in mining. The work that we are doing in terms of supporting the creation of a capable state, in this case, in terms of correctional services, as well as with regards to transport and mobility and infrastructure related to that. The annual report gives a lot more in terms of other examples of the impact of our work. I think, as you know, our mandate is very broad, and this brings with it an opportunity for us to work with a variety of partners. I think the slides just gives you an example of some of the partners that we work with. It's not a comprehensive list. We work across the board in terms of developmental agencies, government departments, private sector, science councils, education, training authorities, provincial governments, and many, many others. I think this really comes about because of the very broad mandate that we have, but also because our work, I think, straddles many, many sectors of the South African economy, as we've indicated. So in concluding, then I think the message that we wish to perhaps leave you with is that despite the challenging economic environment that we find ourselves in the CSIR over the past year has had very positive results in terms of our performance. We achieved 81% of our targets in the last financial year. And given our performance over the past 3 years, we are very confident that we are on track to achieve our objective of supporting the creation of a capable state in one hand, as well as contributing towards the industrial development. I think the investment that we've made in capability development, both with regards to people and infrastructure, I think puts us in very good stead to ensure that as an organization, we remain relevant and impactful now as well as into the future. Our state base is growing, which means we have the capability to execute the various programs that we've set for ourselves in the organization. And we continue to transform in terms of race and gender within the state base, but overall in the broader CSIR. We are in a very strong financial position. Our balance sheet remains very strong. We've got a very strong cash position. Our liquidity and current ratios are all above 1. And so we have a very, very strong balance sheet, which I think makes us a financially sustainable organization, but also operationally. Our total income is growing, as well as our profitability is improving as a result of us ensuring that we manage and contain our costs within the resources available to us. And we continue on our very good track record of good governance, as indicated in the earlier slides, with regards to positive audit outcomes, our performance in terms of health and safety, as well as our performance in terms of BBBEE, which I think is a significant achievement on our part. So with that, we would like to conclude the formal presentation. And once more, thank you for taking time to come and listen to our story in terms of how we have performed as an organization last year, but also over the past 3 years in terms of the realization of our strategy. I'll hand over now to my colleague, Program Director, and then we'll enter into a Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dlamini. I may be getting ahead of myself, but I think we do have a good story to tell. Thank you for that comprehensive presentation, and to our executives as well for sharing the impact that we are making in research, development, and innovation. So I would like to open up this session now for some questions from our media. And I'm going to start with those who are joining us online. So David, will you be assisting me? I don't see the teams. Pardon? From Steve. Okay, it's not showing on this side. Is that okay? Yeah. All right. Okay. So yes, we'll be starting with our media from online. What I would like to request is that in your introduction, do share your name as well as the publication or the media house that you're representing. Thank you. So the first question I understand is from Steve. Please do go ahead, Steve. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you're loud and clear. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, so Steve, writing the piece for Tech Central. I think I have two questions. I think the first would be in terms of a forward-looking approach, what the CSIR would be looking to improve upon. I think they're having read through the annual report, a number of wonderful projects, and looking at that strategic objective 1, just noticing that score of 60% achieved, and just in terms of the process of creating projects but also accelerating their diffusion. I think like a lot of the projects seem to have been developed but are kind of still in the process of getting out there. So yeah, I think from a forward-looking process, what kind of things is the CSIR looking to do in terms of accelerating diffusion of projects, and secondly, what as part of that, what would the CSIR look to say government to the private sector for help in that area? So yeah, just a forward-looking elements around the acceleration of diffusion of strategic objective 1 would be question number 1. And just question number 2 would be on the profitability. Just noticed some really healthy numbers there, although revenue remained fairly the same. So just wanted to understand in terms of net profit. I mean, that number's more than doubled in 2 years. So just be interested to hear how the organization has streamlined things internally to be able to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Before we answer Steve's question, I'd like to ask just for 2 more questions from our online attendees, and we'll combine the answers. Okay, Joe, can you please come in? Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, I'm going to read the question from Joe from Leadership Magazine. He asks, what role is CSIR playing in reviving the SANDF research and development, given the fact that military spend had drastically gone down? Thank you.
Thank you, Lindy. Thank you. Can I ask then our executive, Dr. Dlamini, can I ask you to please assist with the 2 questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve and Joe, for those questions. Take the questions from Steve, and then I'll ask my colleague, Dr. Masamuli, to speak to our engagements around SANDF, or what's called dairy-related funding issues, and what we are doing in that regard. So looking at the first question in terms of what do we hope to improve, I think you touched on a very important point on the commercialization of CSIR intellectual property. And even though the numbers that we reported on show a positive growth, particularly if you look at licensing of CSIR IP, I think we're very aware of the fact that even though there's positive growth, the scale at which this is happening is still not where we would like it to be. As a result of that, one of the things that we've been doing over the past year or so is to look at what is it that we need to do structurally to improve the scale and the pace at which we are able to commercialize our IP. So we took a concept to the board, fairly well developed, more than a concept, but a strategy and an approach that we took to the board in August, which has within it the intention to create an enterprise which will be sufficiently capacitated in terms of human resource as well as financial resources, with its sole responsibility and purpose for the commercialization of CSR intellectual property. We did a very extensive exercise in terms of how other RTOs similar to ours in other parts of the world are approaching this issue of the commercialization of intellectual property. And this model that we propose to the board is based on that best practice benchmarking exercise that we undertook. So we'll be announcing this in the new year. We're still going through the approvals with the shareholder. But we think that this approach will bring about a step change in terms of our ability to commercialize intellectual property coming out of the CSR, because it's very clear that to be able to do this at scale, you need dedicated capacity. Not just the scientists who develop the research themselves, then also having the responsibility to go and find the market for it. You need business people, you need entrepreneurs, but you also need significant amounts of capital that will go into the commercialization of the IP coming out of the CSIR. There are already some early examples of good work that we are doing in this regard with some partners, but we think that this new approach will really bring about the step change in terms of us being able to do this at scale. So commercialization is indeed a major focus for us going forward. And we'll be making significant announcements in terms of our approach with regards to this. The early indications and the early engagements we've had with potential partners that we wish to bring on board all look very exciting and very positive. So there's a lot that we'll be doing in that regard. I think the other issue that we will continue to drive quite strongly is our ability to attract senior set capacity into the CSIR. We realize that without this, we'll not be able to make the kind of long-term sustainable progress that we wish to make. So we have to invest in this, and we are also taking a very strategic approach in terms of building capacity, especially in those areas of our strategy which are still at a very early stage of development. Here I'm talking about areas like mining, for instance, some of the areas in health, which are still, I think, at a fairly early stage of development, even in mobility. So we need to capacitate these areas. If I look at mobility, for instance, one of the things we did last year was that working with the National Research Foundation, we've established a research chair in smart mobility, which is at the University of Cape Town. Again, this is an initiative which is intended to build capacity in this emerging area of research that we are trying to develop and to strengthen within the CSR. So we are looking at really ensuring that we have the requisite capacity to drive and to support the realization of our strategy. In terms of what the CSR will be looking for from government and the private sector, I think it's simple. We are open for business. We wish to partner with industry in terms of the areas that we've identified as priority areas for ourselves. I think last week we had our biannual conference, and we had some very exciting and very engaging discussions with private sector. Some of my colleagues here that spoke about some of the work that we are doing, led various discussions with our partners from the private sector and from government in terms of how we can work together, to leverage the capabilities that exist within the CSR to make a contribution with regards to the creation of a capable state and to support industrial development. So we are really opening up ourselves and inviting private sector and government to come and work with us and to tap into the capacity that exists within the CSIR. We think that the areas of focus that we've identified are indeed relevant for the South African economy. And I think if we work together, we'll be able to realize significant progress with regards to economic growth and industrial development in South Africa. The issue of profitability, I think the main issue there really is that we've managed our costs much better. think with the implementation of the new operating model in the CSIR, we had to optimize our cost base. We went through an optimization exercise in terms of the core capabilities we have in the organization. We went through an optimization exercise in terms of the support structures and the capability that exists within that. And we're beginning to see the result of that optimization. We've looked very closely at our costs. I think this has really been a key driver in terms of seeing the positive financial performance. I think we didn't go into the details of this. One of the issues that we had to drive quite earnestly was around the profitability of the CSR from its operations. I think we realized that for quite a long time, we were not profitable from operations. I think over the past 3 years now, if you look at our financial performance, I think the CSR has become profitable from operations, in addition to other revenues that contribute towards our bottom line, such as investment income and others. But the key issue was that we've driven quite hardly, quite strongly, the issue of profitability from our operations. And we expect that this will continue to improve going forward. I think the question around the SANDF, I'd like to invite my colleague, Dr. Maserumule, to maybe speak to that question.
Thank you. No. Thank you, Joe, for a very challenging question. Regarding the work with that supports SANDF, it is our considered view that the Department of Defense and military veterans, despite the funding challenges, still prioritizes the strategic independence of the South African National Defence Force, and what supports that in the main is having a strong sovereign R&D capability. So the department continues to invest in the Defence Evaluation and Research Institute functions that are housed both in AMSCOM and within the CSIR, and we are hopeful that this continues to be the case. So some of the we continue to be in the mix, I think, in terms of how the department sees the future of its capability playing out. Despite, and I think anybody that has been following funding in defense will agree that it's been a very unfortunate over the past several decades. But despite that, I think there is still a will to do that. So we're hoping that the funding will improve at some point. But as it stands, we still prioritize the doing R&D that enhances the capabilities, that supports the strategic independence of the SANDF. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Maserumule. I have one more question from Evans Manyonga here online. He is the editor of Tribe Business Magazine. And his question is, do you feel the private business sector has enough knowledge on partnerships potential with the CSIR? Do you have plans to increase these partnerships while ensuring the value of the CSIR is known far and wide? So before you answer that question, I would like to invite our colleagues in here for any questions. Thank you, Guy.
So I have Guy Martin here from Defence Web. I have a few questions, but I'll start with some of the engagements that the CSIR is having. I attended the conference last week, and the response seemed very positive. So I'd just like to know what other conferences and events the CSIR will be attending, what trade shows and so on, and what other efforts the CSIR is undertaking to expand its presence and market itself. Then second question, I was speaking to some of the guys involved with the wind tunnels, And they say that their facilities are booked up years in advance, and the business is going extremely well on that front. And one of the reasons for that was they've been actively marketing the wind tunnels for the last few years, and that's paying dividends now. So what sort of lessons can be learned from the wind tunnel side of the business and applied to other sectors? Say, for instance, the defense research capabilities of the CSIR. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. We'll open up for one more question before our executives respond. Okay. Hi.
Thank you. I'm Bradley Pryor, representing Business Tech. I just wanted to expand a bit on the commercialization side of things. You mentioned earlier on in the presentation the funding structure, and I believe you said 25% is a grant and the rest is through other sources. I was just interested on clarification in terms of how you strike the balance between ensuring that CSIR is financially profitable, sustainable, etc., and also ensuring that you don't simply pick the most profitable endeavors and also pick the ones that are most in the public interest. So in terms of that balance between public interest and profitability of the CSR, what is it that you, or how do you strike that balance?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to hand over to our CEO.
Thank you very much for those questions. So let's start with the question from Evans, which is really around marketing and business development. One of the things that we did with the implementation of the new operating model of the CSIR was to create dedicated capacity in the 3 divisions that we have for business development and commercialization. And this was created with this realization that we need to create capacity that will help us as an organization to understand what the needs of industry are. And then with that knowledge, translate that into a response strategy. And that then informs the work that we do within the CSIR. And within that capacity of business development is a function of marketing that sits within each division to ensure that we are visible to the sectors that we wish to serve, to ensure that we are visible, of course, also to the government departments that we continue to partner with. So we are making good progress with regards to that. Are we where we expect to be? I don't think so. I think we still have a long way to go in terms of our business development as well as in terms of our marketing of the capabilities and creating visibility of what sits within the organization. And my colleagues can maybe speak to specific examples in terms of some of the initiatives that we have executed in terms of making us more visible and bring us much more closer to the sectors that we wish to serve. But I'd like to believe that we are making progress in the right direction. I think the numbers that we shared with you earlier are a good indication of that we are indeed moving in the right direction with regards to that. We had a campaign earlier this year. I don't know if any of you were aware of this campaign. CSR Did You Know campaign, which was driven by our colleagues in strategic communication. I think it's still running, and that is it. Website is still running, but okay. So there were various media platforms that we use for this, radio and so on and so forth. Again, to try and make the CSIR visible and known to the partners that we wish to engage. So we're making progress. But as I said earlier, there's still a lot of work that lies ahead for us, I think, in this regard. And I think if I come to the question from Guy in terms of which other events we'll be attending and conferences, I cannot speak with authority on that. Maybe I'll ask my colleagues to perhaps relate some of the events that we'll be attending, but these will be sector specific. I mean, we just came out of the AAD, which we had recently, and our colleagues in Defence and Security had a very strong presence I think, with regards to that. But there will be, we participate, we continue to participate and to engage in the different forums. The conference that we had, someone needs to mute.
It's been pending.
So we will continue to participate. I think we might not have the exhaustive list in terms of the various engagements. And my colleagues, of course, if there's anything that immediately comes to mind, please, I think you can share it. Dr. Some of the learnings that you have as to the work that you've done there. Then I'll come in to respond to the question.
Thanks a lot. So I think maybe the issue of marketing, I think it's something that we've been on for quite some time there. Maybe to your question, we try to attend in that sector specifically. We attend all the events globally. We will have 4 or 5 events that happen in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. And so we do this consistently. And now we do that on top of a well-established, strong experimental aeronautics capability that has been around for a long time. And so much so that I think there is in Britain, there are a couple of people in Europe that used to work at the CSR that work there. So this has been built over time in doing that. And then these capabilities, we've been without fail making sure that they get displayed. We talk to the relevant people, because to be able to do what they do, you need to impress experts that are working on these complex systems in aerodynamics. So we try to, particularly in defense, we try to replicate all of this. You will have seen one of the private sector partners is Hensoldt, and with Hensoldt we are commercializing a radar, very modern radar that is going to be manufactured in South Africa for the global market. And there as well, we depended on that. Is one of the oldest capabilities within the CSR, radar and electronic warfare. The first Thulani's first predecessor was a radar man, and he I think he put a peg in the sand, and ever since it's been a mainstay of the CSR. And so I think just being consistent in building the capabilities and showing them and attending, and I'm sure my other colleagues will tell you the sort of in biosciences will attend several events globally, where year in and year out we're in there, and as you do that, you build a track record of working on certain projects and that gets stuff. Maybe let me stop.
So if I come to the last question by Bradley on public good research. So of course, in terms of resourcing the work that you can classify as public good, that will come from the grant that we receive from the state. I think there's no other means, but there's also work that we do. For instance, we're doing work now with Nedbank, for instance, and private umbrellas, which also has that flavor, of public good. But of course, sometimes we make a mistake that public good means free. It's not free. Someone has to pay for it. So we use the grant to support that type of work. And there are many examples I can relate to this. For instance, we've just released a report on the circular economy and what needs to happen in the sectors. I think we analyze about 4 sectors of the South African economy in terms of how can we circularize those sectors and to reduce their impact on the environment. It's entirely funded work that we are doing in this regard. But also an extension of this, most of the work that we are doing with government departments has that flavor to it. I mean, the example that was given earlier around the work that we are doing with the Gauteng Department of Road and Transport on potholes, that's public research. So there are many examples of work that we are doing which translate into direct contribution in terms of improving the well-being of society in general, either through providing knowledge or providing solutions that address a problem on the ground. So for us, it's not an issue that I would say is foreign to what we are doing, or that requires us to act differently, because we see this as part of what we need to do as a CSIR. I think if we recall, one of the statements that we have in our mission is that we provide knowledge solutions that enable the state to develop policy, but they also help to inform the public around the various issues that we are involved in. So this is part of what we do. It's part of what we do. But in terms of its resourcing, from our own resources, we use the parliamentary grant, part of it, to drive programs of that particular nature. But to a large extent, the work that we're doing with government has been flavor associated.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Dlamini. Thank you so much to everyone for the questions. I'd like to invite you once more, just for a last round of questions, if there's still any. Online, I'd like to know if there's still any more questions you'd like to pose to our executive. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. And in this room, is everybody okay? Guy?
Small aerospace and defense questions. I'd just like to know what the key aerospace and defense projects are at the moment that the CSIR is undertaking. You mentioned the radar with Hensoldt. I think that's the Quadome. I see one of the more recent projects is also the turret and improved survivability aspects of the Mamba armored personnel carrier. But are there any other key, relatively new aerospace and defense projects? Thanks.
No, most definitely. So there's been quite a bit of work on the on synthetic aperture radar, and now with synthetic aperture radar there is space. There is a space line to it, so you put this in lower atmosphere, and the distinction with the synthetic aperture radar is that you can see below the ground. It's engineered in such a manner that you can see below the ground. Now there is another one that you can put on a UAV. Now for the UAV, this can be it brings a different angle to technologies in farming. So this can be used by farmers to look at different parts of what they're looking at. The erosion of the soil, the crops, whether the crops are growing at the rate that they're supposed to, and so forth. But the applications to synthetic aperture radar are quite vast. On space communication, you can use this in intelligence. You can use the defense forces can use this. Now it's much cheaper as well. So whilst the African continent is pretty much without sensors, if you go north of the country, it's dark almost all of it in terms of sensors that enable you to see stuff. So the African continent can actually with this South African technology be able to be brought forward quite quickly on that. And yeah, so that's a very exciting. It's a very exciting technology that is in the pipeline, and also the same core technology can be used for safety in mines. We have seen in Krugersdorp and next to Krugersdorp when you know that is the Zamazamas or illegal mine. Now you can put systems like that in the same manner that we put similar sensors in the Kruger National Park. You can put systems like that to monitor 24 hours. Now, the technology has improved, the one that we use in the Kruger National Park. It has improved to the point where you put a radar that actually tracks people and all the living organisms of choice. Of course, not very small ones, the size of a human being and so forth. And it's able to now, if you have the policemen, for instance, manning this thing, they will be able to tell whether the people walking around are the police because they know where the police are, or whether there are people who are not supposed to be there. That is one key use case that we can look at. And another key use case is safety in remote areas like farms. You know, we have had problems of farm murders and all of that. Now, safety in these rural areas, and we've gotten it to a point where I think it can be a sustainably run business that does that, because some of the systems have a radius of about 15 to 20 kilometers. So if you're looking at a farming community, and all you need is one operating room that looks at that sweeps around, and you have one reaction task force that then supports that group. So this thing can be run privately, you know, and again around the border, the same technologies around the border, because we have a very vast borderline. So if you have systems that can cover 20 kilometers around the border on both sides, because we have a problem of goods disappearing from one side, showing up on the other side, and vice versa. So if you're able to cover that with those technologies, you pretty much know what's going on, at least across the border. So there's a set of technologies that are very exciting. They have very good applications. It's a matter of us finding a way to make them into businesses that then increase the economic output, but also improve security of citizens and national security in a sense. Because what happens in Mozambique, you'll require something like that to be able to know where these folks are going, what they're doing, and so forth. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Mastrumile. I think we have one last question, if I'm not mistaken, from her. Would you like to pose your question? Thank you.
Herb from Marina. I was really just going to ask a very basic question, which is you talked a lot about marketing and making the CSIR more visible. Do you have one single project that you could say is a flagship project that would wow people and really up the profile of the CSIR in the public arena?
No, thank you for that question. Unfortunately, the answer to your question is no, we don't. I think given the diversity of the different sectors that we are in the CSIR, there are many very high profile projects. I'm sure if I ask my colleague who is responsible for advanced chemistry and life sciences, she'll give me a list, and similarly with the other colleagues. I think it's very hard for the type of organization that we are, given our diversity, to say this is the one thing that we are trying to do. And, my colleague spoke about the work that we are doing in radar. It's a very high potential, project that we are undertaking. And, there are many projects in smart society, for instance, high profile projects in mobility, around issues of just transition, issues of climate change. So there's I think that perhaps is an indication of the complexity of our business, that it's very hard to reduce it into a single thing, given the complexity and the diversity of the things that we are doing. But maybe I can ask my colleagues, maybe just to highlight one or two beyond what we've just shared with you, big things that are happening. Maybe I'll ask my two colleagues who have not said much, Dr. Malinga and Dr. Chikwamba, perhaps if they want to reflect on one or two big things, maybe that you want to share with the colleagues for this topic.
Yes, I think for us, it will probably be the hydrogen economy and its impact on our future sustainability with regards to the environment and our energy challenges at the moment. I think that's the one that we need to pursue with vigor and serious attention. That's the one that I'll highlight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We work in the life sciences as well. And in fact, when we were talking about the events that we attend events such as BioAfrica, big bio conventions, in which we display some of our capabilities. And at a time when we're talking about pandemics and pandemic preparedness, I think the work that we do in that space is work that is well worth mentioning. But if I were to speak about I'm going to mention two quick things that make us really, really proud. And starting with this whole idea that we need to improve our country and the continent's health security by building local capabilities to be able to manufacture products, be they small chemical elements, molecules that are part of pharmaceuticals, or biologics, which are very expensive biotech drugs, and vaccines. These are things that we are thinking very, very seriously as a country in the continent, that we need to be health secure, given that we import 99% of these kinds of products on the continent and 100% of the biologics that we consume. So to that end, we have established a platform that we call Future Farmer, in which we offer open access type approach, capabilities to take concepts that come out of R&D and make them into prototypes that can go into clinical development. And we do this across small molecule APIs, but as well as biological molecules. And in fact, at the height of COVID, one of our startups managed to create some reagents that enabled us to locally produce diagnostic kits. So that's the one that I want to talk about. A second one that I want to touch on, given that I have the stage at the moment, is our capabilities on adverse drug reactions. And this is about a very unique capability that the CSIR has, where we are able to generate stem cells and to engineer them, non-embryonic ones, what we call, pluripotent stem cells that are not from embryos. We're able to use these stem cells to generate what we call liver organoids. And we can actually engineer these organoids to try and mimic what happens when drugs are metabolized. And we know that about 12 billion rand is spent annually in dealing with adverse reactions of drugs that were tested overseas in predominantly Caucasian populations. So the platform that we've developed here allows us to test major drugs that we know are metabolized in particular pathways into their active forms, so that we can understand which ones will be relevant for us on this continent, given the genetic diversity of African populations. I feel that this is something that is highly valuable to allow us to use the appropriate medicines for our population, or to repurpose the drugs that are available so that they are more useful to us than to cause us harm. So those are two big things in my area that I just wanted to highlight. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chikwamba. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Chikwamba. Thank you to our CEO and our leadership for all the answers to the amazing questions that we received from our journalists this afternoon. We've actually come to the end of the session. I would like to invite Dr. Rachel Chikwamba to come and give us the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nolwazi, and I shall try very hard to refrain from further expounding further on the things that we would want the media to know about what we do. But mine is a very simple task this afternoon, colleagues, which is to thank the colleagues from the media for choosing to spend their time understanding further who we are, what we do, and why it matters. I think there's so many storylines that you could be pursuing, but you chose to come and spend time with us understanding the innovation space and the role that innovation has in the challenges that we face at the moment. At a time when the world economies are struggling to grow, value chains and supply chains have been disrupted, and climate is changing. I think they call it the 3 C's of COVID, conflict and climate change. We really need to elevate the role that innovation can play in alleviating the challenges that we are facing as humanity, and also specifically as a country, as well as a human species. We consider the media a strategic partner in telling our story. And in fact, you are such a valuable connector with whom we can reach a broad range of stakeholders. We can reach kids in school so that we can interest them in STEM. We need a continued pipeline of people who are interested in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, because they can see the tangible impacts that this enables them to be able to contribute to in innovation. We need to be able to let industry know about our capabilities that can bring competitiveness to their sectors and to their enterprises. We need for the public and civil society who are interested to understand how we as a public institution are spending the resources that we get from government, are spending our time in contributing to the day-to-day challenges that they also face. And they want to understand what we're doing and why that is important to them as the citizenry who contribute resources to what it is that we are able to do as well. We believe that we are truly a strategic asset for the country and, to the nation and beyond. And we believe that the media has a vital role to play in contributing to how we remain focused on our mission. And we do this through our values that really define what we do and how we approach the work that we do. We speak a lot about the epic values of the CSIR. You can't be excellent in a vacuum. You are excellent when what you do is known and it edges you on to do better. And our hearts swell with pride when we see articles come up about the good that we do. And so we really appreciate you being here. We speak about the value as expressed by the CEO of good governance. This is vitally important in a society where sometimes many institutions are challenged on dimensions of good governance. So we would like it to be known how we perform in this particular area so that we gain this trust of our stakeholders. We are encouraged to work with others to collaborate. There were many questions that came up about how do we get known far and wide. I think that this is a collaboration that we can have with the media to let it be known what we do, and we can tell our story jointly, but it will create opportunities for us to collaborate with others quite openly. So I think on that note, I want to leave it there and to say that you really have a very important role to play, and we appreciate the role that you can play in keeping us an epic organization and one that is relevant to society at large. Thank you very much for spending the time with us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chikwamba. That really does bring us to the end of the session. Thank you so much. We do have lunch planned for you, so kindly do join us outside and engage further with our executives. I'm certain we're all looking forward to some great headlines from after this session. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate your time. Have a lovely day further.